Hi guys, it is Dom here from Soundsphere Magazine. I had the wonderful opportunity to chat to Johnny Stevens of Highly Suspect about the new album As Above, So Below, his journey to contentment, some of his history, how he's come to understand himself as a musician, and so much more. This is a really deep chat, and I thank Johnny for his time. Go and support Highly Suspect. There's rumours of a UK Euro tour as well down the line. So, yeah, check this out. Thank you for your support. Thank you for supporting us. Go and support Highly Suspect, and we'll catch you soon. Take it easy. So, Jolly, I wanted to ask you this for a long time because as somebody that's experienced so much success in your career in terms of streaming, obviously you've been able to tour not only around the US, but around Europe, UK, everywhere. How do you define success as an artist? It's a big one to start, I appreciate, but your definition of success, how has it changed since the beginning of your career to where you are now with a new album coming and obviously everything you've done before?
Sure, yeah. I think in the beginning I would have defined success as, how many people am I reaching
Mm,
and what are they saying?
mhm.
Am I liked? Am I famous? Am I rich? These are things that would have probably 20-year-old Johnny would have thought, that's the definition of success. I think now the definition of success is ability. So being able to go into a studio, being able to go tour, being able to, because I've learned through multiple experiences in my life that sometimes you're not able to do those things.
Mm.
And so I'm more grateful to be able to do those things. And so now success, it sounds like really old guy of me, but hey, if the cap fits, success is happiness. Like honestly, am I happy today? Am I smiling? Am I breathing? That's success. Is the dog fed? Is the rent paid? That is success to me at this point in my life.
Yeah, yeah. And if you were to look back then at that sort of your period of time where you were putting out The Boy Who Died Wolf, obviously you seemed like you were a different person then. What would you tell yourself now looking back at that time? Because again, that record, and subsequent records, of course, launched the band into, to a global standpoint. So what would you say to yourself in, to that era of Johnny and that, that era of your life? What kind of lessons have you learned? What would you tell yourself now?
Yeah, that's actually a good question. I think, it would be easy to try and pick myself apart and say, all right, well, I would have told him to do this differently and that differently and stay away from this situation. And the real answer is I would say, keep doing exactly what you're doing because even though sometimes you're going to stumble and fall and sometimes you're going to go through painful things, it's going to help you to become, I'm like really content mentally these days, maybe more so than I ever have been. It's good. I feel like comfortable with myself genuinely. It's not false anymore. And so I think that everything I had to go through to get into this headspace was worth it, in the end. So I guess I would tell Boy Who Died Wolf Johnny, uh, you know, keep doing what you're fucking doing, bro. It's all good.
Yeah, yeah. Honestly, I'm so happy. I'm so happy for you, Johnny. I've obviously watched previous interviews where you've talked about some of the challenges you faced, and again, it feels like again you're genuinely in a really good place, and that's
Yeah.
all that's awesome to see. And again, it's a good time. Obviously, as we look forward to As Above, So Below. New record. This Summertime Voodoo is out as a single with its stadium rock riffs and everything. In terms of what Summertime Voodoo and represents and what we've seen so far from the new stuff, what do you want people to take from it? That's not me saying necessarily that you want to sort of tell people what to take from the music, but where are you at in terms of what you want to communicate now with Highly Suspect, in terms of message, vibe, etc.
Oh, I'll tell them what to take. I will definitely tell them. I want people to hear this and be like, holy shit, that motherfucker can play guitar.
Yeah.
Genuinely. That's like when I was a kid, man, the only thing I really wanted to be was like a Jimi Hendrix. I didn't care about singing. I didn't care about any of that shit. Um, I just cared about guitar. And I think that for a number of years on a couple of the past albums, I didn't want to play guitar at all. I got sick of it because I have been doing it since I was 6 years old.
Mm.
I just needed to like step away from it and try other things. And I think at this point, I'm so obsessed with guitar at this point, just the instrument itself. I'm really turning into like this little old man that wants to just work in the workshop and refinish guitars. So that's what I want people to take away from this album is, damn, that boy can play. you know,
Yeah.
and that's like the number one thing for me. I honestly don't care if you like it. I just want you to respect my fingers. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, again, you can hear that on the chat again. So the riffs are amazing, and from a vocal standpoint, because one of the things I wanted to ask you ever since I discovered the Highly Suspect, I actually discovered through a very close friend, and they were telling me about this, this incredible vocal and this this band, and I remember listening. I think it was Lydia maybe, and just the vocal blew me away. And always, ever since I've listened to your material since your vocal really stands out. And I
Oh,
wanted to ask you, like, can you remember like where you first figured out that you could sing like you do, that you could get to where you get to vocally? What kind of relationship do you have with your voice? Because again, I know people that think it is beautiful and think that I've seen real, genuine emotional reactions to not only to just people listening, in the car. You know what I mean? So what kind of a relationship do you have with your voice, and where did you discover your voice, as it were?
yeah, all right. My voice and I are, we've been through a long tumultuous relationship, and we're finally, we love each other, I think. I never wanted to be a singer again. I just cared about guitar. And then when the band started, it was like I could stay in tune more often than the other guys, and that was it. That was the only reason. It was like, I just happened to be able to stay in tune more. Don't really want to do this, but then eventually started to love it. But for a long time, again, just like I really didn't like myself, the voice was part of it. Couldn't stand my voice, couldn't listen to myself, couldn't listen to any of my songs. It was like nails on a chalkboard. And then only just recently, only really within this album, I finally like just finding that self-love in a good way and being like, fuck yeah, dude, you sound great. Like this is a unique sound that you don't hear a lot. I think I've always tried to chase what other people can do. I've been jealous of like my friend Andy from Crown the Empire because he can be like, ooh, like way the fuck up there, and people with very smooth voices, and even like what Adele can do. I've always been jealous of other people's voices, and then I'm finally starting to realize, like, nah, man, there's a whole kind of where your voice sits nicely that not a lot of people are doing, and I like it. I think it suits the stories that I tell, and I'm at peace with it now. Um, what was the second half of the question?
Yeah, so it was kind of a long one. It was just like when you first figured out you could, like, whether it was like when you were a kid, or like did you start
It's now. It's
you-
now. I just figured
now?
out now that it's okay. It's like literally, I hated it. I just did it because I had to, and it wasn't realized. And I did try to do different things. And I think you'll see on this album, I'm really leaning into what what it is the tone of my voice is built for, and playing to certain strengths. And I think that, without like trying to sound too up on myself, I think that I've performed vocally on the album that's coming up, like in my opinion, the best. I'm the most comfortable with what's coming out, and I think that I really like just leaned into it. So I think I'm just finally now figuring out my voice, or at least accepting it and appreciating it for what it is.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's awesome, man. And I wanted to sort of come back to you obviously talking about your happiness and you feeling content now, which I think again is great. A lot of people that I know that are fans of the band, and people that resonate with the band, use the music as a way to cope, or as a way of motivation. They might be listening to Summertime Voodoo, for example. It might be the melody, or it might be the songs, the stories that you're telling, that they find motivation in, for various mental health issues and challenges. So for anyone who is struggling at the moment, I'm not saying you can kind of sprinkle your happiness on people that are consuming this, but what are the things that are motivating you and keeping you going? Whether that's visual, could be films, could be friends, could be family. What are the things that motivate you as a person? Where it could be music again. What are the things that are driving you forward at the moment, Johnny?
I think it's a lot of the things you mentioned. It is friends, and it is music, and it is film. As nerdy as that sounds, like, I mean, I love movies and shit like that. So like when Mad Max is coming out, I'm like, oh, I can't wait for that. I'm at a point now, and again, I think it has to do with aging. I really do. I think there's a few different types of old people. You got your old grumpy ass people, and then you've got older people that kind of settle into a zen and become more grateful and appreciative and of just little things. The Henry David Thoreau, the putting your feet in the grass type of shit. So I'm just like super stoked on life in general. I think it's so interesting. I think that we are in arguably the most interesting point of humanity that's ever existed. Um, Whether that be good or bad, it's interesting, right? Like what's going on globally, so much bullshit, but it's also interesting. And I love just being a spectator and being able to see like, well, what comes next? And not knowing what the future holds, but knowing that in my life so far, it's been fucking gnarly. You know what I mean? It's been up, down, in between, sideways, left, and right. It's so exciting to not know what's coming next. And I just am like so interested in waking up and doing stuff and creating things and making things and moving forward. So everything is motivating me right now, like everything, if that makes
Yeah,
sense.
yeah, yeah. It's interesting because you're the first person that sort of said this is the most interesting time to live. You get a lot of doom and gloom people,
It is doom. It is.
yeah,
It's fucking awful, but it's interesting. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
shit.
yeah, yeah. I do get what you mean to an extent. I think a lot of people can focus on the negatives. I mean, it was interesting because in the press for As Above So Below for the record, you talk about hitting rock bottom again and kind of the next phase of your story and kind of comparing your experience to a book. And I wonder, before we do the promo questions and the touring questions and things like that, what does the next chapter of your book look like? If you could visualize it, I know you might not necessarily have the perfect idea, but does Us Above So Below represent to you a kind of a new phase where you're finally content? Because if it's fair for me to say, it would be arguable that maybe you haven't been as content as now ever before. I don't know if that's accurate, but that's my
It's
interpretation.
accurate. Yeah,
Yeah,
I haven't been. It's accurate. I have not been content in the past, and I've faked it. You know what I mean? And used distractions like typical substance distractions and shit to attain a sense of happiness and contentment. But as far as like what the next chapter looks like, um, I don't know, but I know what I would like, but I've realized in this life, the second you have plans, they're gonna go to shit, right? So as above, so below is not the current chapter. It is everything that happened to me between 2020, 21 to 2023, right? And you're gonna hear that portion of the story. And then at the very end of the album, there is the portion of the chapter that's just starting now. There's this glimpse of hope, and you'll see that. And I don't want to give it away, but the album's gonna take you on a journey. It's a storyteller's album, you know what I mean? And so
yeah.
right at the very end, you kind of get that sense of like, oh, he's okay, and there is
Mm,
hope. And I hope that my next chapter genuinely is just full of creation and playing music with my friends. Like it's all I want. I just want to play guitars, travel the world. Very
yeah,
simple. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like I don't need to get too deep on that. I just want happiness and I
yeah,
want to sustain
yeah.
health and all these things. Yeah.
Awesome, awesome. Well, I'll just squeeze a couple more in before we finish. You talk about that contentment, and I think people strive for that, and maybe they find that through Highly Suspect. Maybe they'll find that through the new record. What can you pinpoint then? When was it after you finished the record? You talk about the next chapter being the end of the record and figuring that stuff out. When did you finally become content, if as it were?
Mid-record. Mid-record.
Mid-record. Yeah,
Mid-record. Yeah, I had like a life-changing weekend, really, honestly. And everything just kind of clicked in such a good way. And I found that I'm capable of loving another human again. I found that I'm capable of loving myself. I found a renewed interest in the music I was making. Everything just started to click. I don't know. I'm just getting old and happy. And I'm maybe part of it is like when you get old, you forget certain things. I'm able to like block out a bunch of shit. You know what I mean? Like
yeah,
be like, you remember that time? And I'm like, I actually don't. Please don't remind me. I'm good, you know?
yeah.
Uh, but yeah, mid-record is when it started to click for me and just seemed to be getting happier and happier as the days go by.
That's awesome. Again, finding out that you can love somebody again can be a powerful thing.
Hmm.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah. In fact, that's how one of the reasons I found the band was through people that I love. So yeah, it's a beautiful thing. Just wanted to go back to the storyteller thing as well because I think that's really important. Have you always been a storyteller? Because obviously your songs resonate with people. Your struggles resonate with people, and the stories that you tell resonate with people in various ways. I'm sure the ways some people interpret them are not how you originally did, but I guess that's the way of a good story. So have you always had a fascination with telling stories, with putting stories together in song or other format? And I guess what makes what makes a good storyteller, and what does telling stories mean to you? Big
Yeah,
question.
I guess when I was like 6 or 7 years old, I think I my dad took me to a play at a theater. It was
Mm,
Narnia,
mm,
and the first time I ever like really was able to actualize with my now adult brain at the age of 6 or 7, a beginning, a middle, and an end, and be transcended into from one place to the other. And so I'm just like, I have an addiction to art. You know what I mean? Like I genuinely think that art is so powerful, and it's all I want to do. And so I look at, what makes an artist, and I'm thinking about an entire discography. I don't think about like one song, one single. I don't think about one album even. I think about like what at the end of the day, when I've got 9 to 10 albums or whatever, or hopefully more in my discography, what's that catalog look like? You look at David Bowie, where did he start? Where did he end up? You look at Willie Nelson, where did he start? Where did he end up? These are the greats, and these are the storytellers. And so like what I want to do is within each album, make sure that there's a story being told. So I'm never going to focus on one specific song. I will while I'm writing it. So
mm.
there has to be a story within the song, then the album has to tell a story, then all of the albums have to tell a story. It's like macro, micro, micro, you know
Mm,
what I mean?
mm.
And so on. And it
Yeah,
goes like that. So when you're sequencing an album, for me, it's really important to do it in a way where it's not just like, oh, here's this song and then randomly that song. And to be honest, the last album, I didn't sequence it correctly. I didn't tell a story. They were micro stories. That was a book with short stories in it. You know what I mean? And I think this album is really beginning, middle, end, all the way through. And I've always respected, like I think Kendrick Lamar is really good at doing that. Artists that can focus on an album
yeah,
as opposed to like no shade on people that just do singles, but there's a lot of artists that are just focused on a single and trying to get you to like that trendy moment for that song. I don't give a fuck about that. I'm like, what at the end of the day, when I'm 80 years old, God willing, what have I left behind?
yeah,
Is it
yeah,
real? Is it art, or was it just money grabs?
yeah. You talk about legacy. Is that
Hmm.
is that is that a dirty word? Like, what do you think about your legacy? What is that? What does that mean to you? Then is it just good stories, or is it deeper than that?
Right now, it's all I have. I don't have children. I don't have a bloodline. I don't have much that I can leave behind other than hopefully songs and albums that can help people. And I think from what I've been told, my songs do help people and shit. So what can I leave behind? My legacy is you know, hopefully art that hits people and can help them and sounds good, you know?
Yeah, yeah, man. It's interesting because I know people that go back to your records after maybe listening a while ago, and they'll go back and they'll notice like a vocal thing, or they'll notice a theme or an idea, and people seem to be embedded in your work, like invested in it, and they'll find new stuff each listen. I guess that's what you're talking about, right? It's that new facet of your work that people can find. Yeah,
Yeah, 100%. I think if you dig a lot of times people will look at songs and the lyrics, this are songs that I've created, and I've seen comments where they say, these lyrics fucking suck. And that's okay. Opinions are, valid. You can have opinions and shit, but I think that there's a lot of times in my songs, because I do like wordplay and I do like poetry and shit. I think that if you really look deeper at some of the things I'm saying, you can find multiple meanings, like they're very intentional. I don't just put like, I don't know. I try,
yeah,
if that
yeah,
makes
yeah.
sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. You can see that effort, or you can hear that effort. And I want to be respectful of your time, Johnny. I just want to do some some roundup questions. Obviously,
Sure.
we're in the UK. You have toured the UK and Europe before. Not trying to, put some ideas in your head, but can we expect Highly Suspect back over in the UK and Europe anytime soon? Is that in the plans?
Yes.
Okay.
But that's as much as I can tell you. That's as much as I can tell you. But yeah.
Okay, all right,
Yeah.
fair enough. For your UK fans, for the supporters, for the people that are going to engage in this new record, that have been streaming the single, that support you and the band, what is your message for the UK supporters of Highly Suspect?
Uh, uh, you're all a bunch of bloody cunts and wankers, and I can't wait to have a pint with you with the fucking arms, Like that's what's up. I can't wait. It's my favorite thing. I love being overseas. I feel like when I'm in the UK, it's like, I don't know, it's my ancestry, it's my heritage. I feel at home and I absolutely adore every part of it. So yeah, fuck off, cunts. I'll see you soon.
Nice one, nice one. All right, and is there anything? This is where I check I've done my job properly. Is there anything you would like to plug or promote that I have missed today? that you want to add before we finish up?
Yeah, follow me on Twitch. I have a great family on Twitch, and it's a really fun thing that I do that not a lot of people know about. So head on over to Twitch. It's Terrible Johnny MCID on Twitch. Come hang out, sub up scrubs. That's my plug.
Well, awesome. Thank you so much for the time today, man.